Larry Nesbitt, Kent Deere, and our friend Ferdinand McAfee that was with us yesterday for the last half and is with us all day today. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
And folks, in case you happen to be a computer nut, you know there is an antiviral program you can get called McAfee. Ferdinand is the author of that something. Isn't that right? That is right.
Yeah, that's absolutely incorrect.
Look, because we are News Talk 1180 on WJNT News Talk, and because you've known us for years, and because Kent and I know that we have a limited reputation worth sharing because we are on this program, for the benefit of
We're big and beat for, though.
right. For the benefit of Ferdinand, I want to say this. Ferdinand, Kent is nicer on Thursdays than I am on Fridays.
I guess.
And I want to get something off my chest right now that probably has absolutely nothing to do with what we're really going to talk about this morning, dealing with Jackson et al. But
He's going to do this, folks. It's been burning.
well,
He's got to do it.
I got to get this off my chest. First of all, if you're not out drinking, carousing, out at the restaurant, whatever, tonight at 9 p.m. Jackson time, and I'll go ahead and say it's on Fox. I know some of you that are beloved MSNBC and CNN folks think that you're going to hell if you watch Fox. That's not true. But there's a special tonight with Bret Baier at 9 p.m. on Fox called The Great Food Stamp Ripoff. It's really interesting to see that under this administration, food stamps didn't start with Barack Obama, but under this administration, it's grown over 25% since he's been in office. And they show the stories of how the beach bums of California that do nothing but surf for a living and try to play in a rock band live off of food stamps and every other government subsistence program, and then have the unmitigated gall to flaunt it in our face by turning to the cameras, waving their food stamps and saying, "Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer, for my lifestyle." Watch it tonight. And then to see how they did a poll, and they actually referred to North Carolina as being a southern state, and they said the question was, if you know someone that is truly, truly in need, do you believe it's better that you and your friends and your church and your family reach out and support them? Or do you believe it's better that they look to the federal government? This was so surprising, it knocked me off my feet. Republican respondents overwhelmingly said, we, our families, our churches. That's a sense of responsibility. Those that are Democrats that responded overwhelmingly said no, federal government. Surprise, surprise. But we ought to watch that show tonight. The second thing is, if I want to be able to tell some people to go straight to hell.
Okay.
But members of my church would be listening. Ferdinand's listening, and I don't want him to get the wrong impression. He was very impressed with me, but not impressed with Kent yesterday, and I don't want that to change. I have heard for 18 months nothing but Trayvon, Trayvon, Trayvon. I've heard the President of the United States say if I had a son, he'd look just like Trayvon. I've heard Miss Money, who outside of money has no redeeming quality to offer America, that being Oprah Winfrey, even though she grew up in my hometown of Kosciuszko, and I took her to the First Baptist Church Sweetheart Banquet. But she's come out on this Trayvon Martin deal. Well, the guy that I do like, who by the way happens to be black, Juan Williams, contributor to Fox, he said it before I did. Where are the race pimps? Where are the race pimps Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton? Just this week, a 13-year-old white boy was beaten, severely beaten, on a school bus by 3 older blacks.
4.
Fox is reporting it. NBC doesn't talk about it. CBS doesn't talk about it. ABC doesn't talk about it. Mr. President, since you're half black, half white, how couldn't this little 13-year-old been the one you looked like if your son looked like if you'd had a son? Why is it, Oprah, that it's a big deal to you? Why is it, America, you're marching in the streets, but when the role is reversed, all of a sudden race does not become the issue? Now, I am not defending Zimmerman against Trayvon Martin. I never have, because I still don't know all the facts. Some people knew the facts 18 months ago because it was even investigated because they made up their mind. I don't know all the facts. And I know this. When an individual is beaten of any age, it doesn't matter the color of their skin, it doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter their vote, doesn't even matter what their religious belief is. In America, it should not be happening. But here comes the double standard, and this is why, in part, there's a race problem in this country today. Martin Luther King said, judge people by the content of their heart, not the color of their skin. Unfortunately, the pimps of the world, like Oprah Winfrey, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, the pimps, do the exact opposite of Martin Luther King. And so here we go. A white kid is beaten by 3 older blacks. It's not news.
Wow.
Forgive him, folks. He missed some of his meds this morning.
Man, I need some
He
coffee.
is pumped.
And the last thing,
Holy
and the
Toledo.
last thing I will say.
There is a last thing?
He
last
does.
thing I'll-
That ain't the last
The
thing.
last thing I'll say before I get off my diatribe is this. Well, 2 things. Welcome back, Larry Nisbet, Kent Deere, and our special guest, Ferdinand McAfee, who has
morning.
tried to leave the studio at least 12 times.
Oh, Lord.
But Kent locked
Wow.
the door.
Yeah, y'all took me real fast this morning.
All right, look, folks.
All right, let Ferdinand defend
We're
himself
we're
now.
going to turn it over to Ferdinand to defend himself in case some of his friends will listen and say, what in the world are you doing in there with
Oh,
Ken Larry?"
man.
But after you defend yourself, let's move back into the city of Jackson that
Absolutely.
we were talking about yesterday. Mike's yours, Ferdinand.
All right, I'll generalize this thing to get off of it and go ahead. The Trayvon Martin thing, he is gone. He's not here anymore. Whatever happened, and it cannot be undone. No matter what happens, it can't be undone. And the court of law is, if anybody's ever gone to court, then you know it's not so much about the truth or right or wrong. It's about who displays and represents the perception of what. It's a show. And maybe that doesn't sound good, but unfortunately it is, and most people do know it. So what you present and how it's presented matters. So that is done, we can't take it back. But let me suggest one thing, that if you notice when the president talks about Israel, or he talks about homosexuals, and he calls someone on the phone to pass Prop 8 and all of these things, those people get the attention because they lobby for it. They do the work, they read the bills, they send, they support, they're active. So they get the attention. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So I would like to suggest that we don't wait until a Trayvon Martin or an Emmett Till or something, that we're not so apathetic, that it takes something so severe. Because if you look at the things that go on around you, Trayvon Martin, that situation was very heinous and it was unfair in a lot of degrees. It was just sad for everybody. But there are a lot of other things that go on in our community all the time on a daily basis that are just as ridiculous, if not more. But we are not as concerned with those things as we are with something that's blatantly, overtly obvious. So let's participate more. Then maybe we're not always in the, chickens shouldn't go to foxes looking for justice. It's less likely to happen. You participate and you build up your chicken coop strong enough, fortify your fences, then you're in a position of power. We have more economic spending power than almost any other race, but less actual power. So something is wrong with that, and I don't think it's the justice system's fault. It's not Reverend Jesse Jackson's fault. It's nobody's fault but the people who are disenfranchised, because there is a way. Anytime you can take people who come from, if you look at some of the greatest contributors to this country, a lot of them have come from other countries. You look at the Latin population from Mexico.
No, I'm native of America.
Are you?
I'm a great contributor.
No, you're from Metallica County.
They get here and they get 10 people in a room and they all ride in the same van, and they do that for 4 or 5 years, and then the next thing you know, they're on the city council, they're on the school board, and they move and they position. So really kind of, you get represented based on how much you participate. So if you'll notice one thing.
That's an interesting thought. That's very true.
On the last election, in large numbers, the Hispanic population said, we want to support President Obama. But it's conditional. It's conditioned upon you passing these new regulations that allow for amnesty and these type things.
Right.
If the election was on Wednesday morning, they was at the White House. They were at the White House saying, look, that IOU, we want it today. Mm-hmm. So miraculously, legislation starts to appear for people, Mm-hmm. So that's how you get it done.
What's that term? Politics?
That's what they call it. I've heard a few things about it. Yeah. So let's not wait on other Trayvon Martins and seek justice.
Agree.
Let's make justice what it needs to be all the time, and that way when you need it, then it's just.
Amen,
it's
fair
enough.
Amen,
now we can
brother.
go to Jackson.
Jackson, Mississippi. There are many people that feel that a major problem in Jackson is an issue of race. I wonder if that's true sometime. I know that race is an issue. I think a bigger issue of race is that we don't have a level playing field and that moves way beyond race. Some of the neediest people in this community happen to be black at a time when the majority of the elected leadership is black. But what happens is the politicians try to play those rich folks of Northeast Jackson against the have-nots of West Jackson, and I'm saying, wait a minute. People in Northeast Jackson realize if there is a problem anywhere in Jackson, then it's a problem for Jackson and it needs to be stopped, whether it's West Jackson, Northeast Jackson, or what. So I say this to say, yeah, there's a race problem, there's a culture problem, there's an economic problem, there's a lot of problems. But there's more crime committed against the black community than there is against the white community. Now, call it 82 and 18 demographics, whatever. But why is it, Ferdinand, where so many of the areas of this city that are blighted are predominantly black in terms of demographics? There are so much of the crime is in fact committed against blacks by blacks, and the majority of the elected leadership that we have comes from the black community. I don't see the black community in Jackson being overly active and overly vocal to go out and elect people that can do something about the jobs, that can do something about streets, that can do something about schools. Where are we missing this? Is it a leadership problem? Is it a race problem? What is it?
All right, let me. I would hate to be in an interrogation room with him. He asks a string of questions. I'd be confused. I'd be guilty.
Intentionally.
Well, when he misses his meds, that's the way it comes out.
So let me say this. Let's go back to the most needy people, or some of the most needy people. We'll have to qualify that within the context of the state we live. You know, Mississippi, if I understand, somebody call it, correct me if I'm wrong, Mississippi receives roughly about $31 billion of federal subsidies. That's more than any other state, from what I understand, in the United States.
Yes, sir.
So it's safe to say that we are a welfare state. The state, the whole lot of us, black, white, blue, greens, chickens, and frogs, we all are the most needy people in the United States. So within that context, I suppose that it's par for the course in terms of what you see in Jackson or anywhere else in Mississippi. Because if you look at the Mississippi Delta, there is no reason that people should live in the squalor that they live in. You have doctors who go overseas to Somalia and other places and they do missionary works and build hospitals, but you can go to places in the Delta and they could take a few missionary trips down there. It's bad. So this is the environment that we live in. So I would have to say that it has something to do with leaders to a large degree, because if you have 10 children in the room and they're all fighting and cussing and hungry and doesn't have on shoes, then you can't just at a certain point say, well, those are some really ridiculous children. You can say that a few times, but at a certain point you have to say, well, who is the parent of these children? So you cannot discount the leaders, but there's a responsibility for the citizens as well. And it's just a breakdown altogether. But I don't believe that it's not something that's so insurmountable that it can't be changed and brought back. That's why I'm here. I truly believe that if it was ever good, and there was a time in history, you know, life goes through cycles, peaks and valleys. And this may be a low point for Jackson. It may be a 30-year low. And that may seem like a long time, but in the history of the world, if you're talking about 100 years, it's not that long. I think it's time for it to turn around now. I think there will be a resurgence of people who care, at least that's what I'm hoping, and putting the right things in place. And I think when they see something that they believe in, and I think they may be heading in a direction, you'll see it change, if only a little bit.
How do we identify people who care, and how do we, what is your perspective on how we make these things? You know, we always want to come together. Everybody wants to come together. I've been hearing come together for ever since I've been on the radio. Let's come together. But we never come together. So how do we come together?
Well, I think if you own a restaurant, I think we misperceive it. We take it as something else. If you own a restaurant and the guy that comes to you raising sand about a fly in his soup, he's raising all hell in the restaurant, and you think he's a bad customer, but he's not a bad customer. It's the customer that sees the fly in the soup and walks out of the door and doesn't say a word, doesn't actually speak to his manager, and just moves on to another restaurant, tells all his friends, I'll never eat there again. You don't get the chance to talk with that customer and see what's wrong. You don't get a chance to grow. So unfortunately, when we see someone who's vocal, or the person that you can identify who calls into this show, the people who called into this show likely live in, near, or somewhere around Jackson. They care. They're not watching something else on television or not paying attention. Those are the ones that care. So we find out who they are. We get their information. We find out what their skill set is, because every human, even people who've been criminals for a living, you know that there are people from the story Catch Me If You Can, who was a master manipulator, that the government put him in prison and then hired him and used his skill set for something that kind of revolutionized the financial and banking industry. We find who these people are, and we don't just listen to them call them.
Who's we?
We as the people who wants us to come together and do something. So I'm one of those. Let's get together and try to do something.
Okay, I understand. I am too.
Yeah.
But how do we do that?
No, we listen to the people who, for instance, let's use a practical setting. Today, the people who call in on this radio show, they have some vested interest in Jackson a lot of times. Because even if somebody's complaining about something, it's like the guy who complains about the fly in the soup. He cares enough to complain. Because people who really don't care don't say a word. They just move or go somewhere else. So we take these people and say, okay, you're mighty upset. So let's bring your being upset down and see what the hurt it stems from. Hurt, anger, and nobody listening to you and being misunderstood. That's where anger usually comes from.
Well, let me give you a specific.
Yes.
I'm a long-term resident
Yes.
of the city of Jackson. Not as long as Kent. I mean, Kent was born here.
He was here.
I
with
can
Moses.
never think of a time when the Jackson public school system actually performed in an acceptable manner.
Wow.
Certainly when it comes to their board,
Yeah.
to the quality of the student, which is the product that they're putting out,
Okay.
to have the level of education that he or she should have gotten and deserves to have gotten. All I've seen in the Jackson public school system is the solution to everything is more money, more money, more money, including a $150 million bond issue that they admit's not doing it. I haven't seen the dropout rate go down. I haven't seen the grades materially come up. I haven't seen much of anything but a bureaucracy with an inept board. Now, the proof of everything I'm saying is in the quality of the student that they're graduating or the lack thereof. So, I'm not the only one that knows there are deficiencies in the school system, and as a taxpayer, the school can raise my taxes and I don't get a vote by law. So let's look who's in charge of the school system, just as an example.
Okay.
Why is nothing being done? We can't even get the majority of parents to attend a PTA meeting. We can't get the majority of parents to own up to the fact that it's their responsibility to raise their child, not the schools and not the taxpayers. So where are the we's that can come together? Because I don't see that situation changing. And you said yesterday, quality of schools is a big issue when people are looking to move here.
It's one of the most important issues. But I think we have to start slowly and in small steps, because I didn't realize that the condition of the school system had been that way for that long.
Oh, yeah.
I've not been here that long.
I graduated from Murrah High School in 1961, and the school system and the whole system was really good in Jackson. And although segregated, I guess I assumed the black schools were good too, but the system was good. And I had my first child in 1969, and I would not send my children to public schools because of all the turmoil, and it was physically dangerous.
Look at the people that oppose charter schools. They don't want to show that some students can excel while others don't. Are we not after education or what? We're up on a break. When we come back, we'll be talking with Ferdinand McAfee, Kent Deere, Larry Nesbitt, WJNT News Talk 1180. The world is listening right now, and if you're doing anything other than listening around the world, you need to stop it. We'll be right back. Welcome back, WJNT News Talk 1180. On this 9th day of August, 2013, Larry Nesbitt, Kent Deere, and Ferdinand McAfee.
Good morning, good morning.
We're taking it right back to you, Ferdinand. Keep us on a roll.
Well, I'd like to say, for anybody who's been listening to this and say, man, that guy is either insanely optimistic or just insane in general. I'd like to be clear about where my calm and peace comes from as it relates to Jackson. I love Jackson. I love Mississippi. We all can choose to live anywhere. Southwest Airlines, I think it still runs. And I think it'll pretty much fly you even to other countries.
Delta's ready when you are, as Louis Grizzard used to say.
So nobody has to be here. You know, nobody's strong arm robbing anybody or tying them and duct taping them to Madison or any of these places. So if you're gonna be here, you might as well just love the place, because nobody gets out alive. If you go to New York, you'll find people who say, well, if you're from New York, all the foreigners get all the action and you can't get anything done. Go to California, you'll hear somebody say, well, if you're in California, all the hippies who are on the beach get everything done if you're from here. So if everybody's running from New York to California, California to New York, Mississippi to Atlanta, then where are they running to? There are stupid people in every locale. There are smart people in every locale. There are losers, there are winners. So you may as well just dig in deep and get it done. So I feel comfortable and confident about these things, particularly Jackson, because history just repeats itself. All you have to do is sit back and study it. I don't think I'm that bright of a guy, but I'm a pretty sharp reader, you know, and I've studied history. And Jackson at one time was not in the condition that it is now. And Mississippi was at one time not in the condition that it is now. But I do think we have to kind of change our positioning. If you're playing sports, you're either on defense and offense. Defense can keep the other team from scoring, but defense can never put up a point. In Mississippi, we're not proactive enough. Most of the things that drive our economy, that drive our direction as it relates to education and business, and a lot of those things are as a result. The city of Jackson now has an upwards of $600 million EPA fine. As if somebody somewhere doesn't know that over time, if you have to replace your light bulbs and your tires on your car, you're probably going to have to replace the water mains and the lines. Mm-hmm. So it's that way in education. The Department of Justice has to come here and make us do stuff, let people like James Meredith just go sit in a classroom. Ridiculous foolishness. You know, so when you live the life of being on the defense and don't take the step to be proactive and say, you know what, there are at least 40 other states, at least 45, 46. There's bound to be another state that's doing this right. And if you can't find another state that's doing it right, let's pick another country. Somebody's doing it right.
Yeah,
let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's get it right. Mm-hmm. So what I specialize in, my degree is electronics and biomedical technology.
We don't use big words like that on this.
Well, I'm in science, so I look at these things as equations. So I look at what the problems are. It only takes three things to solve it: what the thing is designed to do, what it's not doing, and what it takes to fix it. And I look at these things in that same way. So I look at Jackson in that way, and I'm optimistic that it can be turned around. We've just got to stop being on the defense and be proactive. You can give me on any one of these problems, and I've done it before, and I've got the records. I can show you how we do it. That's what I do for a living. You can give me any one of these issues, education, and give me 10 people, professionals who are experts in that field, and a couple of other, diversified. Mm-hmm. And we can solve that problem and fix it within 60 days. It won't be completely fixed, but you'll have a plan that's set up. Because if your wife hates you, if you didn't buy her the car that she wanted, and you ran over her dog, and she really, really has contempt for you, and she makes you a birthday cake, I guarantee you, without her doing anything different, that cake is going to taste a little bit different. Because the intent behind it was contempt.
Well, let me correct you on one thing. Kent likes a dog. He'd rather run over the wife. In our plans
are half baked. Our plans are, I gotta set this school system up so these guys can make this money, and these kids don't get this, and these people. That's a wrong way to make a plan. When you make a plan saying, you know what, we've got to fix this, we've got to bring everybody together, it's going to be good for everybody, then when you put that in the ingredients, then you get out what you put in.
Why doesn't the mayor or somebody, mm-hmm. the mayor be the one to do it, why doesn't he then set up a commission headed up by somebody like you, mm-hmm. of people that are representative of the neighborhoods around here or something, and with no power, no mm-hmm. nothing, but somebody that will sit down and research these problems and in 60 days come up with a plan? Why didn't he do that?
Well, he's just got in office. If you take over as a manager of Target, it might take you more than 30 days.
Well, I know, but none of the mayors before him have done it.
They've not done it.
We don't have any planning like that I'm aware of.
No, and it takes different kind of people we misunderstand that there are different people with different skill sets in the world. Leonardo da Vinci was born to be that way. Oprah Winfrey, who you seem to dog a little bit.
She's from my hometown of
Hey man, I love Oprah. She's born to be that way. When you go to a dentist, they specialize in pulling teeth. You need a strategist. You need an analytical thinker. You need somebody to fix these type of problems because the average person can't because it's specialized.
Are you listening, Mr. Mayor?
We got about a minute and a half or two. Quick questions.
Yes.
what is it supposed to do, what is it not doing, and what do you need to do to fix it?
Okay.
Those 3 points, do you not agree that a simple approach like that, coupled with the right people and the right skill set, could address most every major issue we've got in Jackson?
On the planet. This world is designed.
Number 2, as it comes to getting and assembling the right people to take that strategy, do you not agree that for the most part, we have all the talent and experience we need right here in Jackson
Oh my
without
God.
going to a consultant
Anywhere.
in Dallas, Texas?
Jackson State is about to hire a firm from Alabama to do something
You don't need
simple
it.
and mundane at the stadium. Ridiculous.
And
We've got
and
brilliant people here.
And number 3, for leaders and our people in general, it takes a desire to see what's broken get fixed in order to put that strategy in place, right?
Absolutely.
All right, you've got the brains. Kent has the history. I'm known as
You've
one
got
of the
the
most-
money.
I'm known as one of the most brilliant people the market has ever seen.
By whom?
Coupled with my extreme humility, I just can't get enough people to acknowledge me. Ferdinand McAfee, we're going to have
Thank
you
you,
back again,
Ferdinand.
Ferdinand.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
fellas.
Thank you for being with us. Kent Deere, Larry Nisbet, have a wonderful